Good evening, I'm Dr. Gus Penix, President of the Nicholas County Board of Education, and I'd like to call this the June 21st, 2022 regularly scheduled meeting to order at this time. Would you please rise and join the board in the silent reflections? It gives us the opportunity to reflect on those things for which we have to be thankful, and also to clear our hearts and minds for the business that we talk about here tonight. So a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Would you please join the board in saluting our country with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The first order of business tonight is item 3 on our agenda, and that is to approve the minutes of meetings held on May the 16th, May the 23rd, June the 1st, and June the 6th of 2022. Are there any questions regarding those minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes for meetings held on May 16th, 23rd, June 1st, and June 6th, 2022 as presented?
So moved.
Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mrs. Kaufman seconds. Any further discussion?
Mr. Penning, maybe we need a different light on the subject this evening.
And
Blue?
blue, I'm sure that could be arranged. Just
I'm tired of looking at the green.
It's supposed to match your shirt.
well, not to confuse you all, but can we go ahead and have a vote on this issue? All those in favor of the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. At this time, Madam Superintendent, I'm going to turn it over to you for recognition of retirees.
This battery must be dead. After I announce each of the retirees, I would ask that this board maybe entertain a brief break so that they can partake in some cake in the back. So we got cake to honor them. This is something that's, you guys have spent your lives with your work family in Nicholas County. And I'm truly appreciative for all that you've done for our students. And you can see the impact from years and years to come. I know some of you have been here long enough that you have, you've now educated or you've served, students have gone through their children. And, many of them. So, and I know actually most of you, believe it or not, sitting back here, and great people. Hate to miss you. Hopefully some of you will want to come back and do some contract work with us. But today is set to honor you, and I'm truly honored to be in your presence. I would like to ask, and if the board can come up, because when they come up, I would really like to get pictures with you. And I know that we have several that are not here. Are the ones not here in this file maybe?
No, they're not.
They're not? Okay. Okay.
We didn't know who was coming and who wasn't.
Okay. Well, the first person we have is Mary Beth Cook.
And she's in the fire.
She had 14 years of service. Kathleen Tinchner, 13 years of service. Actually, Kathleen's a cousin of mine. So, Kathleen, congratulations. Appreciate your service, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, here, I'll get your picture with the board.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, let me get a camera.
Oh, here.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. We'll take a couple. Okay.
Teresa Lawson. Another very, very sweet lady who has worked very hard in the kitchen. Thank you for all you've done.
Thank you.
How many years?
16.
16. Oh,
Yeah, I've had kids go through and come out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Patricia Matheny, 37 years of service. Unfortunately, she had prior obligations, and she regrets that she was not able to come, but what a great lady.
Yep.
Here's another one who's really put in her time, Wendy Mays, 29 years of service. And she's taught many of our children how to speak. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Oh, well, God has other plans.
Let's move on.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Penny Beam, 30 years of service. She retired June 30, 22 was her effective date. Deborah K. Mullins, 26 years of service. Another really fantastic lady. Thank you. Appreciate you.
All that work.
Should I get in between you? I'm too tall, you know.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Debbie. Roy Vickers, 8 years of service. Stella Price, 14 years of service. Elsie Henline, 28 years of service. Tamara Scruggs, 33 years of service. Patricia Smallwood, 22 years of service. Harry Jenkins, 15 years of service. I have you for 15. Well, we'll look at that and see. We'll get that corrected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See Sarah back there.
Actually, that's probably what we
Yeah, we'll look at it.
She may have 17 because of her sickness.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't remember.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, take a smile on your face. Charles D. Rose, 36 years of service. Okie Myers, 33 years of service. Cleta Hanshaw, 6 years of service. Rocky Roberts, 33 years of service. And this man, you can talk to him at 3 in the morning, you can talk to him at 5 in the morning, And he is always pleasant, he is always kind, and works all the time. Well, I have to do these calls for like, when we're doing like the road calls and stuff for slick roads. So we start calling back and forth at 3 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock before we make a call. So, and he's up all hours of the night, so I'm like, he never sleeps, the poor man, so. We're all gonna miss him.
Hey, Rocky, I've heard he's already applied for 3 more jobs. He's got all those batteries in it.
You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Pamela Tabarin, she's not here. 36 years. Sweet, sweet Cindy Shelton, 33 years.
Thank you. I guess I'm old. When you say 33 years, I'm old.
If you're willing to die, you in school.
So did Mr. Booth, so you did so if I'm old, you guys are really old.
I'm not gonna let the truth hurt.
Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Lemon Groves, 19 years of service. Lisa Bennett, 29 years of service. So we've had a lot of great people retiring, and again, I'm just so appreciative for all that you've done and the way that you've served our children all these years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will confess myself, my first year's were in Nicholas County. I'm trying to give you those years. I thought, if this is wrong, the parent board's paying me wrong.
Congratulations to all our retirees. We wish you the very best as you move forward into your futures. And so we just want you to know that we will miss you, and that anytime you want to return, come on back. We'll put you to work.
Yes.
So, we're going to have a little reception time now. The board's going to stand in recess for about 10-15 minutes while we have a little reception for those folks. We have some cake.
Cake, coffee, water, tea, yeah.
So please enjoy. We're in recess. We're back from recess. Action items, section 5 of this evening's agenda. First item on the action item list is approved to add alternates 1 and 2 to the Richwood High School, Richwood Middle School, and Cherry River Elementary campus bid package to expand gymnasium seating to meet sectional seating requirements. And then also, I'm going to, when I call the architects up in just a second, I'm going to ask you to just go ahead and address item B, which is approval to add item alternate 2 to Richwood High School, Middle School, and Cherry River Elementary campus bid package to provide 2 flex classrooms and associated corridor. And then item C is to approve to add alternate 1 to the Nicholas County High School and Summersville Middle School bid package to add seating to the auditorium to match existing Nicholas County High School seating number and associated stairs and elevator. This increase will allow the same percentage of seating for Nicholas County High students as provided for Richwood High School students. Excuse me. Item D, approval to add alternate number 2 to the Nicholas County High School and Summersville Middle School bid package, add elevated running, walking track inside the gymnasium and associated stairs. And alternate is not needed for the NCHS gymnasium. It is currently large enough to host sectional tournaments. Seating may be added to meet the current number of seats at NCHS without expanding the gymnasium size. So we're going to talk about those three before we get to those. Alternates are things that you have the regular construction package, and then you have alternates to it that if you were able to afford them, you can add the alternates in. Is that correct to the architects? Okay, and before we do that, last time we had some questions to come up, and we're going to initiate a new procedure. We talked about this in our board assessment appraisal the other day. The five of us talked about this, and what we're going to do, if you have questions from the audience about something that we're going to discuss, we'll accept those in writing, and then I'll ask the question. It removes a lot of the emotion or whatever from the situation, so we'll enact that. If anybody wants to needs to ask a question at that point in time, then we'll provide a piece of paper to ask the question. So
Just raise your hand, and Melissa has papers and pencils that she can hand out.
but at this time, we're going to ask them to present to the board on those four areas, items A, B, C, and D.
Yep, if they can come forward. So with, this board moved previously to reduce both facilities to policy 6200 standards in an effort to come in on budget with these projects. It's one of the things from the beginning of the FEMA funding. It's been very important that we not do any type of increase on tax burden to citizens, that the facilities be constructed with the funds that we currently have, and in the FEMA package. And in doing so, again, the board moved to go forward with making Richwood, Cherry River campus, and the Glade Creek campus to meet policy 6200. So with that, I'm not happy with the 6200 school, which I'm sure most people are not. And where that really hurts us is in usually, gymnasium seatings, auditorium seatings, and things like that. So in constructing the facilities, if there's ever going to be an opportunity to increase the gymnasium size or of either facility or the auditorium or those needs, it needs to be coupled with the new bid packages that will be going out so that the contractors can bid and tell us exactly how much it will cost to increase those things. So the two things that I've mostly heard about is increased size of the gymnasium for Cherry River campus. It's currently structured actually at a higher number than what 6200 calls for. And then to meet sectionals. That's one of the things that was stressed last time, was to be able to meet sectionals. So I asked specifically the architects to write specs so that we can host sectionals at on the Cherry River campus, and as well as the two alternate classrooms that we've spoke about before. And then when it comes to the Nicholas County High School, Summersville Middle School, again, we talked about sectionals. It's currently of the size to host sectionals, but they can increase seating in the current gymnasium size to be equal to the seating that is currently at Nicholas County High School without a cost of expanding the gymnasium. And the auditorium, again, 6200 auditorium, even though Nicholas County High School has more than double the enrollment at Richwood High School, it calls for the same number of auditorium seating. So in order to seat the same percentage of students at Nicholas County High School as we will be seating at Richwood High School, it would call to increase the seating to be equal to the number of seats that they have now at Nicholas County High School. So that would be considered an alternate bid. So, and then the third, well, actually the second alternate bid would be the inside track that would be the upper level of the gymnasiums, not the previously viewed track. This would just be a track that spans the inside of the gym. One of the things that's really important about this, again, if we don't get these alternates in, then it's not going to be possible, or I don't think it would be possible, to incorporate these later, or it will be such an exorbitant amount of money to make these things happen later. So it may be that the bids will come in lower once they rebid, that we accept the 6,200 level schools, and maybe we can accept expanded gymnasiums and auditoriums and things that I'm mentioning. If we, maybe if it doesn't come in too low, we may have donors. We may have someone that steps up and says, well, this is really important to me. I'm willing to make a financial contribution. You may have an organization that steps in and says, I want to contribute. And then if they do, then that alternate could be accepted by the board, and then we can proceed. So that's how that works. And this is something that we had planned on doing, is trying to incorporate alternates after doing that base bid at 6,200. And again, I listened to the things that that I heard people say, and those are the priorities as I understood them. So.
Chris can talk about numbers.
Let me talk about numbers. Thank you, Dr. Teacher. Thank you all for having us again this evening. A couple things just to clarify. So let me briefly, the additive alternates. Alternates are taken in the order that they're listed. You can't take alternate 2 without taking alternate 1, so I want to make sure that everyone is clear on that. So what we have at the Richwood High School, Richwood Middle, and Cherry River Elementary School, the alternate 1 would be the gymnasium expansion. That would increase the gymnasium seating from currently at 439 to 700 seats. That basically is an increase of around 1,650 square feet approximately. Alternate 2 would be the flex classroom expansion. That would be the 2 classrooms to the north end of the existing Cherry River Elementary School. Those were shown as base bid when it was bid the last time. We would make these an alternate bid. Again, they were not part of the original programming study that was done on the building, so they're not required in that programming study, but it would give the ability to have flexible classrooms depending on if one grade increased in size and you started to need other classrooms. This would be an increase of approximately 2,000 square feet. At Glade Creek, the Nicholas County High School, Summersville Middle School site, we do have the 2 alternates, the auditorium expansion. What we would do with that expansion, we don't want to increase the footprint. We don't want to make the building larger than it needs to be. So the easiest way to do is insert a balcony. We do have a second floor already there off the entrepreneurship hub. So we've looked at reconfiguring the auditorium to be able to connect it to that balcony. What that's allowing us to do is take the seating from 367 seats in that auditorium upwards to 600, a little over 600 seats in that auditorium. We're trying to see if we can increase that a little bit more, but at a minimum we'll be able to reach the 600 seat level. What that will allow us to do is we can actually connect that to that entrepreneurship hub floor, and it will require us to add a stair and an elevator as part of that service and part of that alternate. That's an increase of roughly 3,375 square feet, but that will bring the percentage of the enrollment of the auditorium pretty close to equal to what's at Richwood, where it's actually a little bit less than what the percentage of occupancy would be at Richwood. And in alternate 2, the elevated indoor walking and running track, that would include the track. That would be alternate 2, so you'd already have accepted alternate 1, which is an elevator and a stair. We would utilize that same elevator and that same stair to also provide access to the track. So we would only have to add 2 additional stair towers to get to that track. That is an increase of around 10,600 square feet. But the ultimate goal is it does bring the gymnasium seating, as Dr. Teacher mentioned, both gymnasiums up to the SSAC regional tournament level based on the classification level. Any questions?
On May 16th, the auditorium size for Richwood was stated as seating for 250. Now, in action item A, we're proposing to go from 250 to 900 sectional, so that the sectional.
That's auditorium. We're not modifying the auditorium seating to Richwood in the alternates. We're proposing to modify the gymnasium seating in the alternate.
Gymnasium's 400. So we're going to go from 400 to 900.
700. 400 to 700 at Richwood.
But there has to be 900 to hold a sectional.
No, sir. Single A, SSAC is 700. And this is.
Okay.
Yeah, this is according to their winter sports newsletter issued November 2021, 22. They have for quad A is 1,000, triple A is 900, double A is 800, single A is 700. And we did reach out to SSAC to confirm.
Chris, could you go over the same thing for the gym out here? This, on the agenda says an alternate is not needed for ECHS gymnasium. It is currently large enough to host sectionals. Is that?
Yes, it's the configuration of the gymnasiums to reduce the overall square footage. We've got the high school gymnasium, if you remember the floor plan diagram. The high school gymnasium kind of ran east-west on the basketball court. The auxiliary gym and the middle school gym run north-south. The dimension north-south is what kind of drives that overall width. And then in that overall width, and based on the court width that's required for the high school court, we're able to easily get the seating in there to increase it to the seat sectionals and that without increasing the footprint.
On each end, it would be bleachers that would pull out or expand.
So there will be telescoping bleachers. So at the Richwood School, they're on one side of the gym, so it's the main entrance side of the gym. The bleachers would be on that side. There's a bank to each side of the entrance. They are electrically operated and retractable. They'll retract all the way back to the walls. On the Nicholas County High School Gymnasium, they are on both sides of the gymnasium to get the 1,000 seats, and then they retract. They're the same. They will retract as well. The middle school and the auxiliary gyms will be retractable bleachers as well. And those two are on the east-west ends of that overall gym complex.
I have a question here. What will the seating capacity be in the gym at Nicholas County High School? They are considered to be a triple A in basketball.
I'm sorry, could you speak up?
I said that what will be the seating capacity for the gym at Nicholas County High School? They're considered to be, or they are, a triple A team in basketball.
They would be the seating there. It would be 1,000.
Yeah, and that's what it will be for them, correct? So tonight, well, I'm sorry.
That's just flipping the court and opening up for the courts to be able to get that much seating.
Yeah, well, so the main high school court has 500 seats, roughly 500 seats on each side. It's a minimum of 1,000 based on the seating. As we lay out the seating, you get ADA seating that goes in there. You lose some, you add some. So we have to make sure we have the minimum amount in there. The plan is that the two end walls of the main high school gym would be retractable style curtains so that you could retract it. You would have access to the auxiliary gym on the west side, and then you'd have access to the middle school gym on the east side. The middle school gym would have seating on the far east wall. That seating is 550. And then on the auxiliary gym wall, you would basically have a little over 250 seats on that gym. So you could retract the curtains in that gym. You would have seating in the main section, and then you'd have seating on the two ends.
So we're asking here tonight for two alternates for both sites. And in those two alternates, both schools would be able to do sectional tournaments if they were to be held in basketball at those schools. The seating would be at that capacity.
Yes.
That's what we're asking. We're asking. We have on the agenda to approve tonight for you to prepare those alternates to go with the construction bids when they go out.
Right.
Okay. Just a little historical point of view. How many schools today, Mr. Ferguson, would you guess, this is a tough question, are most schools built with SBA funding today?
Yes.
Or are there very many?
Well, there's usually a combination. You know, everybody tries to put in something, There's very few schools built with just SBA funding usually, but they always like to ask the county to contribute something, so they have skin in the game. But if that's what you're referring to.
My question, further question on that would be, are there very many schools now that build very many districts or counties that build schools now solely with bond construction funds from the county?
There's very few. Most counties have to pass a bond, and some counties, it's very rare that they pass a bond. Some counties don't have problems passing a bond, school bond. Others have struggled to pass their levy. So it's just a function of how they get the feeling in the county, sentiment in the county, and how every county's different. So it's a struggle sometimes.
I think my experience in working with counties, and most counties, in order to do any type of construction, have to have a combination of a bond passed in the county along with SBA funding to do the construction. And my whole point is that we were fortunate. Well, we didn't have SBA until 1989.
Right.
It wasn't around. And when Nicholas County High School, the current Nicholas County High School was built in the 70s, it was built totally with local bond construction funds. The citizens of the county passed a bond construction, and they built that school probably for about $5 million, $5 or $6 million at that time. And they had the luxury of building whatever they wanted to build. Most schools and counties can't afford that anymore. You have to build them according to SBA standards. So.
Yeah, usually what happens, you start out with a strict SBA school with policy 6200. And if the county can come up with additional funds for, especially an elementary school, let's talk about that. Usually an elementary school has a multi-purpose room. Usually it's 3,000 square feet, and that's about all you get. Unless they can, everybody wants a gymnasium. They'd love to have a gymnasium in an elementary school, but the counties typically have to come up with their own funding for that. SBA typically will not fund that as a strictly an SBA school.
That's what happened to the Panther Creek. The community contributed and built the gymnasium over there.
Yeah, we raised over 100,000.
Yeah, that's the typical scenario now, especially for elementary schools, because everybody wants something larger than a multi-purpose room.
Wasn't trying to muddy the water,
No,
just trying to show the fact that we had the luxury, I guess, of a bond issue back in the 70s to build the school.
Yeah, most counties that run bonds, if they're smart about it, they'll budget they'll design their school up front, and go for their bond of what they, not design the whole project, but program it, see what they want, budget the project correctly so they know how much they could ask for a bond. That way they don't have any hiccups down the road.
Have both these campuses been reduced to minimal 6,200 standards?
For the base bid, except for those two items, yes.
What is it?
For the base bid, except for those two items, yes. Like we talked about the gymnasium and the auditorium.
Yes.
But we're still going to have 3 gymnasiums in a school that only has 2 groups. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's per policy.
Yes.
The entrepreneurship hub, were you gonna have to have like an elevator?
You
Why
have to,
not?
yes.
Okay, so but you're gonna have to add another elevator if you,
To get to the top of the balcony, yes.
to get to the balcony?
Yeah, we're looking to see if we can alter that, but there's also,
You mean like a 144?
yeah, there's also the ability to add that elevator as part of the track alternate too. We're looking at that option as well. If we can make it work with just the one elevator and get to the balcony level, which we can on the lower section, and we can limit the seating, the ADA seating on the bottom section of the balcony, then we can probably make the second elevator just tied to the track elevation only.
Any further questions?
Yes. The walking track inside, I can't see any point in that. I just think it's a waste of money. That's my opinion. If you've got the 3 gymnasiums, why don't you just walk around the 3 gymnasiums? And do we have to add these now, or they will not be done? Or can they be added later? We could still go ahead and add these at a later date, could we not? Under a different
You need to
contract.
design it, you need to design it and put it out to bid at the same time. You can't design it later if you've already got something under construction, because then you're going to be altering more the construction that's underway, and it will cost you a whole lot more money.
Is there any projection on how much this will cost?
We're not at that point yet, because we're just trying to figure out the numbers ourselves.
Well, we're projecting a $40,444,000 deficit in these two campuses. Why are we still adding more stuff on? And that's pie in the sky.
Well, at the last board
It's not
meeting,
gonna happen.
at the last board meeting, that's exactly what people asked for. They asked for a space big enough for sectionals for Richwood, and they asked for a space big enough for sectionals at Nicholas County High School. That's what the public asked for. So I am proposing this, and as far as those alternates, those are, and as far as the auditorium, those are all things that would be nice. It doesn't mean we may not have the money to do it, but if they don't design it, from what they told me, if they don't design it, then there's not going to be a possibility. Someone may donate money, someone may, but if we say no, then Richwood's going to be stuck with a small gym. What we want to give them, we want them to be able to play sectionals. We want Nicholas County High School to be able to play sectionals. We want to.
They already can at the Nicholas County High School current gym. And that's stated right here.
Mm-hmm. And the auditorium. You know, I'm asking to do the same for both sides of the county, Richwood and Somersville. So that's up to this board to decide what you want to do. And I'm bringing to you, this is what I heard the public say that they wanted, that's what I'm bringing to you.
Well, the 40 million you mentioned there, Roy, that was over before they downsized it to start with. And I don't know how much, nobody knows how much they'll save.
So the one thing about the additive alternates is that they're just that, they're additive. So the base bid will give you the base size of the gymnasium and the base size of the auditorium at Somersville or Nicholas County High School. These are just additive items. You design it in, you get a competitive bid price, you get the best price to construct that at the time that the contractors are bidding the rest of the building cost. And then you all will have the option to either accept or reject those alternates. You're not forced into taking them, but it gives you the option to look at it if the dollars are there.
Yeah, we're just voting on is putting it in the design.
Right.
Yeah, just for us to be able to design it and include them in the documents.
At what point will we know how much money has been saved by reducing to 6,200 standard?
Finish the floor plan to get it to the schedule.
Yeah, as soon as we have the floor plan 100% finished and we have the final scope of work worked out so that we can give to the cost analyst, which is Skanska, and the construction manager, then we should be able to come back with that answer.
Chris, I think I recall last time we were speaking about the Glade Creek site up here, you had reduced that about 45,000 square feet.
That is correct.
At the last meeting. That's substantial.
Yes.
And so that brings that cost down a great deal. And
I stated at that meeting, from the time it was submitted at schematics, it's been reduced to 147,000 square feet.
That's right.
So 45,000 square feet is the size of a small elementary school.
Is that based on current prices? Because prices have gone up per square foot.
I'm not sure of your question.
Are your projections of savings based on the current prices or the prices when that was brought before the board?
So
because the price per square foot has gone up.
Yeah, we have to look at where current pricing is situated now, but we have to have some sort of cutoff point when we're designing. I mean, we can't proceed into design documents and the cost per square foot change in 2 or 3 months from now and go back and redo things. If we do that, we will never get out of the ground. We will never have a good set of documents for you. So we have to get a cutoff point of when we get comfortable with a floor plan that the board approves, that everybody's okay with. And at that point, we can start pricing it and figuring out where we are.
And your cost for the Richwood School is totally different, per square foot, is totally different than the cost for the Nicholas County School, high school. It's going to be totally different square foot cost. There's different materials, different sites, different conditions.
Different
It's
size,
totally
yeah.
different square foot costs.
Yeah, that's
And that would be that would be before all the price increases or after all the price increases that happen. It's just they're two different type buildings and they require two different square foot costs. That's the way the contractors will look at those. And you may even get an economy of scale with the larger building because you'll get discounted materials because you're buying 3 times the amount of materials.
Any further questions? Hearing none, gentlemen, thank you all for coming again, and
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Well, before you leave, where is the wiring in the buildings going to be? Because some of the schools that we visited, they had it under the concrete, and then they had problems, and they would have to cut up the floors.
So, to answer that question, so at we'll start with Richwood Middle, Richwood High, and Cherry River Elementary. We are abandoning a lot of the underslab wiring that's existing in the Cherry River Elementary School. There's a lot of issues and problems with that wiring. A lot of the problems in the underslab the wiring issues are related to when they used metal conduit. Very popular in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. That has deteriorated and gotten water in it over time and is causing numerous problems. Today's PVC piping, underslab piping is not a concern. It's done on a regular basis. So areas of the new building, you're going to have a combination of receptacles, things fed into the rooms, especially like floor boxes, things like that. They're going to all be fed from under slab. You'll have areas of main distribution that will be fed overhead. So it's a combination of both, and it'll be in both buildings that way. But the concerns today with today's materials are not the same as they were in the 70s and 80s, early 80s. A lot of them were metal and they just deteriorated and got water in them.
Thank you.
Yep.
thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you all back home. Item E this evening is approval of policy 2271. That is also item L below, and so we're striking item L underneath action items, and we'll be considering item E, approval of policy 2271 on dual credit beginning with the 2021-22 school year. That was last year. I'm assuming that's next year.
No, it needs to go back from the beginning of this year. It needs to be retroactive.
Retroactive, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, so that policy 2271 was in your packets, and I'll lay this right here. And also today I uploaded the comments, so those are in your board packets as well. There were several comments in support of the policy from parents and students and teachers alike, and you can read over those. So those don't require any kind of action on your part other than, if you so choose to approve the policy. There was one comment that I would like to address. It's the last comment, I believe, so it starts on page 2. It talks about the equity between the two high schools in the county. The dual credit opportunities should be equal at both RHS and NCHS. And really the dual credit opportunities they're driven by staff numbers. Each school has the number of dual credits that are possible with their current staffing. And there's no recommendation for a change to the policy because the county does have open borders, and students are able to travel to one school or the other to take classes if they need to. The other comment there was in regard to the Math 4 credit that's required for graduation, and specifically that the Glenville State University and the New River classes, this person felt that it should account for the Math 4 credit, but all dual credit courses are analyzed on the basis of the standards that are taught in the college class, and also the standards that are taught based on what the state requires for the credit. So in order to receive credit for the graduation, the college classes have to meet the state standards for that math credit, and the GSU math classes align with the Math 3 credit that's issued by the state. So I don't have a recommendation for any kind of change to this policy based on that comment.
A couple questions. Well, the dual credit math came from WVU, is that right?
I believe there's classes from Glenville State as well and New River.
Yeah, I don't know if the dual credit math was. Well, there's a Math 3.
Yeah,
The
there's,
last two in the chart are the ones from WVU.
Yeah.
But there's a Math 108, Introduction to College Math, that's Glenn.
Yeah, okay. Now, can the dual credit, do they cross with the associate degree? Do they work
Yes.
together in both?
Yes.
They can, okay,
That's where a lot of these alignments came from.
okay. So they can either go with just the dual credit or they can go with the associate. Okay.
Are we able to find out which colleges will accept these credits?
I mean, if it's a transcripted class from a accredited university, I believe they transfer.
I thought you said earlier that all colleges in the state would accept.
Depends on the
Right.
program.
What we've been told, what every parent needs to do, and this is what I've said from the beginning of time, is they need to call to make sure what programs transfer. So if you get an associate's degree from one college, in theory, they'll transfer to other colleges because it is an associate's degree. It's not noted as, well, it was an associate's degree they got in high school. It's an associate's degree. So if they would go out and go to Glenville and get their associate's degree and decide to go to Fairmont State, will that transfer? So associate's degrees typically do transfer. I don't know of instances of where they don't, but it's something that parents, counselors reach out. If there's a concern, I know that our counselors call ahead, they'll call WVU, they've called, and they try to clear things for students as they're going through their programs of study.
Now, I know that we kind of set it up to promote education and teachers, but if you talk to those students, they'll tell you, I'm going into this field or that field, so they don't necessarily have to stay in the education field.
We have it for business and we have it for teachers. The other one, since we're starting a new law and public safety program, they also have one for law and public safety, so we're going to work on trying to get that incorporated for law and public safety for next year. But it's just like completing an associate's degree, 2 years out of high school. It's the same thing. It's not noted as this is an associate's degree they got in high school.
Yeah, now some of the comments, I don't know where I read that, from individuals about the associate degree, how much they liked it, parents and students and stuff.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's truly phenomenal. And my goal is to have, all programs available to have associate's degrees.
How many are on track right now for next year?
I'm told 14. So we had 9 the first year, 4 this year, and 14 for the fourth year because COVID kind of knocked us down. And that's a lot, and that's zero cost to parents. And if they have, of course, they apply for financial aid. When they fill out the FAFSA, if they're eligible for FAFSA, that covers it. What parents, the things that don't cover. I mean, this board's paying for the books. We're writing reimbursements out. Kevin's been keeping up with that, so it's pretty big deal. I think if you just read the comments, you'll see that.
further questions for either the superintendent or Mrs. Atkins in regard to policy 2271 on dual credit? And we're actually approving this retroactive to this current school year.
Most of them have the option of in-person or online, I said, correct? Okay.
Is that correct?
Is that the student's choice?
It's the student's choice. If it's available, and I mean, sometimes it's available online only, sometimes it's available in person only, but if it's available both, I mean, the student can make the choice.
Okay. Any further questions in regard to item E? Item F, approval of the contract with Andrea Williams for consultation provided to Valley River Elementary with IEPs, 504 plans, and behavior assessments. You had that contract sent to you electronically. Are there any questions in regard to that contract with Andrea Williams?
And that's a contract she currently holds.
Hearing none. Item G is approval of the MOU with Concord University for clinical students, field placement, student teachers, and resident teachers. Mrs. Atkins.
Yes, that MOU is in your packet. We've approved several of these recently. This is just to allow for student teacher placement.
Any questions in regard to the MOU with Concord University?
Memorandum of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mrs. Atkins. Item H, approval of superintendent's guidelines for remote work. You received that electronically, Ms. Atkins?
Yeah, those are in your packets. This plan was developed primarily during COVID, but also with the knowledge that you have particularly central office staff who have an enormous amount of responsibility, and it's not possible to bring a substitute in to complete their work, and it would really put this board and our employees in serious financial jeopardy. So these were developed as a way to allow certain employees to work from home in very limited circumstances.
Any questions for Mrs. Atkins or the superintendent in regard to the guidelines for remote work? Hearing none, item I this evening is approval of a contract with Mr. Roberts to provide maintenance and transportation supervision services mentorship to the new employee for those positions.
Correct. We will be hiring his replacement tonight. We're not 100% sure when the candidate will be eligible to work, but as you all know, Rocky shoulders an enormous amount of responsibility, and it's a big learning curve. So in order to keep the continuity of services, to keep buses rolling this summer, to keep our maintenance work ongoing, that we felt that this was necessary.
60 days, that what it was?
Up to 60 days.
Mm-hmm. And if they don't need 60, he won't,
Right. And this is roughly his current daily rate of pay.
Any further questions in regard to the contract with Mr. Roberts? Item J, approval to renumber the NCBOE policy on superintendent's evaluation to Neola policy number 1240.
Correct. You approved this earlier in the year, so it's just a matter of renumbering it so that it falls into the Neola.
Any further questions or any questions in regard to the renumbering of that policy? Item K is approval to renumber policy number on Title IX to Neola policy 3362 and policy 4362. So basically the same thing on this.
The same thing, correct.
Any questions for Mrs. Atkins on that?
On Title IX, what? Didn't it say in the policy that we needed a male? Remember when we looked at that, it said that you were in one position, but it said that we also needed a male in that position.
It was recommended that you have a male and female coordinator, but we've handled it just fine for several years with just me and Chris. And Mike Williams helps out also, so I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think it said you may, I think it said you must.
No, it was recommended. It was recommended. It's not required in the Title IX regulations that you have a male and female Title IX coordinator.
Okay, I'll look back.
Item L, as we said earlier, has been removed from this evening's agenda. Item M, approval of Neola policy section 7000 with an effective date of July 1st, 2022. Now, policy...
There were also some comments for that, which that's loaded in your packets as well. There was only one comment, and it was regarding the gym size at Nicholas County High School. And I didn't have a recommendation for an amendment to the policy section based on that, because the size of the new gym at Nicholas County High School is not really dependent upon our policy. It was designed on the basis of WDE policy 6200.
Okay, but the item M, there's approval of the Neola policy section 7000. That's the policies we put together. They've been out on comment.
Yes, and that was the one comment that we
We're
had.
now just asking to have an effective date of July 1st, 2022 on those.
Correct.
Any further questions in regard to Neola policy section 7000? Item N, approval to place Neola sections 5,000, 6,000 on 20-day comment period and approve as an emergency rule effective July 1st, 2022. These policies have been developed, put together, and they would be out on a 20-day comment period. So are you asking us to suspend the 20-day comment period?
No, you go ahead and put it on the 20-day comment period, but in the meantime, we did this with the Title IX this year when they handed down the new regulations. We implemented the policies and emergency rule, put the policy out on comment. It's such an enormous section of policy. I hate not to put it out on public comment, but I think we can adopt it as an emergency rule until the public comment section ends.
Okay, and then we'd have to approve it again after that, I assume?
Yes.
Okay. So we're only asking for that emergency approval on July the 1st until when the 20-day comment period is up, and we'll reconsider that.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions in regard to Neola policy sections 5,000 and 6,000 on 20-day comment period, and approved on an emergency rule as an emergency rule effective July the 1st?
This way so we don't have two policy manuals out there. I just thought that was unworkable.
Item O, approval of the Neola section 8,000 as an emergency rule effective July 1st,
Yes,
2022.
it's currently out on public comment now.
Okay. All right. Any questions in regard to that?
And that is all the Neola policies, so we're nearing the finish line with those.
The upgrading of our policy manuals has taken about 3 years to do.
Yes.
And so we're trying to get it into an effective one manual, smaller, condensed, and we work with Neola, who constantly monitors policy for state and federal corrections.
Correct.
Okay. Now, would anyone like any certain of the action items to vote on them separately? Would anyone want to vote on any of the action items separately?
D.
Okay. Item D. All right. Is there a motion to approve action items A, B, C, E, F, EFGHIJKMNO. Is there a motion to approve those action items?
So moved.
Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion in regard to action items A, B, C, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L? No, sorry, L, take L, take L out. M, N, O. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Is there a motion to approve action item D as presented? Mrs. Kaufman moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion in regard to action item D? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign.
No.
Okay, Madam Secretary, let the record reflect that board members Amick, Berry, Kaufman, and Penix voted in favor of the motion, and Mr. Moose voted for the negative. Consent items is next. Mr. Hess.
Okay, I have several things this evening. For it's our last meeting of the year, the fiscal year, so we have a lot of budgets and transfers to clean up, make sure everything's budgeted before we prepare our financial statements. So I'll move through those relatively quickly. And if you have any questions, just give me a sign.
Where are you starting? What are you starting on?
I'm going to start with payment of current invoices.
Pardon me?
Payment of current invoices. If you have any questions.
There are two of those on the electronic.
Do I have any questions on those? There were several this time. I'll go to transfers and supplements. Again, this is the last opportunity to budget any monies that have come in that need a budget, and our last opportunity to transfer funds around so they're not over budget in any one area. I can go through each one of those individually if you'd like, or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those as well.
What are you on now?
Transfers and supplements.
Transfer to something. Just a minute. Find it.
Probably the biggest one that I would want to talk about is the tax collections. We just approve those on a very conservative manner at the beginning of every year. We have about 10% for allowances, exonerations, tax discounts, and so inevitably every year we collect a little bit more than we normally budget. And so this year it was approximately, we're thinking it's going to be about $1 million. And so we took that $1 million and we supplemented it into different areas that we feel like are going to be very close, which was, we put some in technology, $170,000. We put an additional $250,000 in another line for technology. Alternative education, $140,000. Vocational funds, $200,000. Food service, $4,000. And just general instruction, $227,000. So,
You're sure you're going to get that million?
pardon?
You're pretty sure you're going to get that million?
We feel, we're pretty comfortable it'll be real close to that. We've already exceeded our budgeted amount, so we'll be close.
So you still have, one more collection?
June, yeah.
June collection?
This
And when you say you're going back and you're taking that amount that you look like you're going to have, and you're just putting in areas where we may exceed our expenditure, or we may exceed our budget, and so you're filling the holes.
We're filling in the holes. For example, like we didn't really, even though we were fine on transportation, we didn't know that the price of fuel was going to double.
Yeah.
And so that was an unforeseen cost last March when we did the budget. And so now we would have the opportunity to go back and fill in that hole where we didn't maybe budget enough initially. That's the most significant transfer and supplement that we did. All the rest was to move monies around, a lot of times within a program. If for example, supplies was over in budget and we had excess money in purchase services, we will move that around within the budget just so that everything looks nice and neat. So you can see there's several of those. We'll just like I said, it's our last opportunity to clean up the general ledger before we prepare our financial statements. Any questions on transfers and supplements? So the next item is the treasurer's report. It's for the month of May. And if you look on the first page, that's the revenues for the general fund. Right now it's $60,720,279. Of that, we have almost $21.5 million in assigned, restricted, committed, non-spendable, or unassigned funds. So the working budget there on revenue is approximately $39 million. Of that $39 million, we received $31.6 million. We have about $7.6 million to receive, which means that we have received approximately 80% of our budgeted revenue. And I've said this before, there are some things that we budget the actual revenue at the end of the year. So there's a line or two, there's $3.9 million that we'll budget here as we prepare our financial statements, which will change those numbers some. But as far as actual revenues in, we're right at $1.6 million. And you can see we've already taken into some of the budgetary amounts. The personal and real estate property taxes is $5.8 million, and we've received $5.7 million we have in revenues. So 98.58% is what we've actually received. But we've already included that budgetary amount that I just mentioned a minute ago. Debt service, no revenues there. Capital projects fund, $169 million budget. We've received $7.4 million. Leaves $161 million to receive in cash for the school funds. And so just to give you an update, now remember this is cash, this is actual cash received, and the expense part of this is actual expenses out the door. So one of the things we don't typically do in construction projects is set up encumbrances. Like 99.9% of all of our purchases we do that starts with the purchase order. And so we're not required to do purchase orders when we have outstanding contracts. So that's why you don't really see that in this treasurer's report. You'll just see the cash that is to be received or that has already been spent. So we updated the actual funds available. If you take into consideration the starting amount of the school projects at $177 million, and you look at what has been already spent or funds that are committed through contracts, then we have $141,806,538 remaining. And so that has changed about $27,000 from the last time I've given you an update on that. And most of that is a DEP fee, and where the board amended the ZMM contract a few weeks ago.
I don't think people realize how much permits and fees cost.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah, that was huge.
It's
Yeah.
unreal
Yeah,
how
we-
much they charge for them.
It's $300 here, it's $600 here, it's $2,500 here, it's $10,000 here, it's
Yeah,
outrageous.
that, when you use the term cash,
Mhm.
it sounds like we have cash. But you kind of have you're just keeping an account of that cash.
Right, it's cash to be received. We eventually do receive it. We don't have it in hand until we request it. We don't request it until we spend it. So we don't have $160 million sitting in the bank. We spend $1 million or $5 million, and then we ask, it goes through ZMM, it goes to SBA, it goes to West DSM, it goes back through the state auditor, and then flows back down to us. And then once we actually have that $5 million that we asked for, then we pay our contractor. So our contractors are sitting out there 30 to 60 days after they submitted a bill before we ever pay them, because we're waiting on it to flow through the chain and get back to us.
And we can only request the amount of money that's on an invoice.
Correct, yes.
So we can't go out, there's no money floating around. We can only request what's on an invoice, and it goes through all those different state steps.
Do we write the check, or does the state write it?
We write the check.
Okay, but the state has the money, or the
No.
federal?
It flows down from the federal, 90% of it, and then the state
Right,
match
yeah,
comes in at
yeah.
10, and then they'll electronically transfer that to us, and then we write a check out to the vendor or contractor.
One payment at a time.
So I'm going to do, just to make things easier for everyone, I'm going to go ahead, even though we're not required, I'm going to go ahead and encumber everything that is committed for the project, so that every month when you see a financial statement, you're going to see that net amount. And so it should include anything that has been spent, and it will also have an encumbrance out there that will eventually come down every time we pay that vendor. So I think that'll just be easier than me telling you this is your cash and then coming over here and say this is what you have spent plus what you have contracts on. I think it'll be more clear. So I'm going to do that July 1, so the next year it'll look better on monthly treasurer's report.
Well, the only reason I asked that question was some people think we have that cash in a bank, and we don't have cash in the bank.
No.
It's just on request.
Right.
As you.
And we're not even allowed to keep the interest that it earns the few days that we have it. So, I think we're allowed to keep up to $500. So that's nothing in the big scheme of things. So there's no money to be made for the county to have any of that money.
So when we say the FEMA 428 plan has a balance of $161,798,774, that does not include what we have, what we've already committed to.
Right. If there's a contract
You're
out
going
there.
to add that on this.
Yeah, you're going to see that. When you see this next time for the month of July, you got one more month of June, and then when you see it for July, it's going to reconcile back down to that $140 million. And then I won't have to report two different numbers to you.
141 million, was that what you said? 141 million?
141,806,000. I may have said 9, or 500, but that's about $938.49. That's the current amount that is unencumbered and uncommitted.
A big example of that, of course, would be the M&H contract, which is doing site preparation up there. We accepted that bid at $15 million, and and we may have only paid $3 million, so the rest of it's still encumbered out there
That's right.
to be expended, so that gets us down closer to 141.
And that's the biggest difference between what's on the treasurer's report and what is committed, is that outstanding balance that we've not paid on the contract.
Plus the current budget of 169,043,090,61, that was what we had started into this past fiscal year. It
Right.
doesn't count the, what, 7 or 8 million that was spent the previous year.
Right. Our accounting system doesn't do a historical budget. We have a one-year budget. And so it started out in year one, that number was $177 million, and then we spent a little bit out of it. Then when I went into year two, say we spent $5 million the first year. So in year two, the budget was $172 million. And then year three, whatever, so on and so forth. So that's just the way our accounting system works.
Contracts.
Okay, so at the bottom of that page, you can see our cash balances and how much is in each fund and how much is in each investment account. Then we look at the special revenue funds, that's your federal and your state grants, $10.8 million budgets. And we have received $6.1 million. We have a budget balance of $4.7 million, so we've committed about 56%. And those funds are exactly like the FEMA funds. We don't receive any of those funds, those federal grants, especially until we spend it. And then we request it from the federal government, they send it down to us. But now on that, we'll go ahead and front that money as a county, because a lot of those federal funds are salaries, and they need to be paid twice a month. So, but they're pretty reliable funds. And we have a grant award saying that we're going to get that money. And then finally is the revenues on the federal stimulus funds, $15.9 million. We've received $1.8 million, so we have about $14.1 million to receive. Looking at the expense side on the general fund, $60 million budget, $27.9 million has been spent. We have $6.6 million in salaries to be spent for the remainder of this year, which includes the month of June and July and August. And then, so that leaves $26 million budget available, which I spoke earlier on the revenue side. A lot of that's already in your restricted, your assigned, and your committed funds. So about 57% of your expense budget is committed.
Are you expecting to have to supplement the budget any this year?
And supplement?
The budget, do you think it's going to come in, or are you going to have to supplement some of it?
Oh, we always supplement. Just about every month, something new will come in, or I'm hoping, our goal, of course, is that we will end the year on budget or less than budget. And we've have a pretty good track record for the last several years, but that could change just like that. Our fuel prices went from $30,000, and I think it was $58,000 or something this month. So fuel prices are almost double, if not double in some cases. So there we go on the next page. That's your capital projects expense side, and it shows $169 million in budget. We've spent $7.2 million in this fiscal year. We have a $10,000 encumbrance, and which leaves on the kind of the cash, what we've actually spent would leave $161 million unspent funds. On the special revenue, your federal and your state grants, again, $10.8 million budget. We spent $7.6 million. We have $1.3 million in payroll, which leaves $1.9 million available to budget. And then your federal stimulus funds, $15.9 million budget. We have spent $1.5 million. We have $789,000 encumbered, which leaves about $13.6 million to available. Any questions on treasurer's report?
I just have a comment. We had, according to just the general fund budget, a $60 million budget. That's just the general fund. That's not, that it's, and it doesn't include FEMA funding. It doesn't include federal programs, special programs, those types of things. This is not a small-time business.
It's a lot.
That's just a comment. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. If you have no questions there, we'll move on to contracts. First contract is with Appalachian Office Products. It's for Summersville Elementary for their copier for the upcoming school year, and it's .006 cents per copy, and it's paid for out of their levy funds. Then we have a second contract with Appalachian Office Products for Richwood High School. They're actually going to buy a copier for $4,050 and then have a maintenance agreement on that copier. And again, it's paid for with their levy funds. Mixed Suitor, $400 for Bay Creek. That will be is that a summer program or is that for the fall? September 29th to 22, 1 o'clock. So it's next fall. And then the new contract, the state has made a law that all counties must provide a means for the public to make electronic payments to schools. And so we could, and that doesn't necessarily mean ball game tickets or T-shirts, or I mean it's or lunch bills if we had them. Could be any. There are some things it has to be for, I believe, and there's also some things that there's an exception for, like concession stand and so forth. So this is going to be a new thing for us. Our accounting software that we have in each of the schools, they have teamed up with this KEV group, and they have a product out there that is integrated into the school accounting system, and so they'll be able to take electronic payments. They'll be able to set up their electronic menu. Parents could pay bills instead of sending cash. They could buy tickets. They could buy hoodies. They could pay for pictures. So it's really, it'll be at the discretion of the law and what the principal wants to set up. I kind of like it. It's going to take the cash out of the schools. And so it's going to free up time for the teachers, hopefully. There'll be less work on the secretaries. And just as far as a control a theft embezzlement type thing, it eliminates a lot of that as well. So
they'll have to use that system?
They don't have to.
Well,
they have to provide it as an option.
So how's that going to take away, from not teachers and stuff having to do it?
Well,
if that option's there for them not to do it?
It may reduce the amount they have to handle, I guess. It won't eliminate it.
So if they're selling tickets at the ball game, they can just swipe the card rather than give the cash?
I don't know how that will work at the gate. They may.
You're talking about buying them in advance tickets.
Prepay for them.
They can do it. They sell units. Like Nicholson High School can buy a POS unit where they can do that.
Okay.
If they have a unit, of course, they'd have to have a unit there to pick up the card, but anywhere they sold.
You said some things are exempt, is that correct?
Yeah.
That might be.
Yeah. Some of those, like you can imagine, inventorying and keeping track of a concession stand and then offering that to buy a 15-cent lollipop. That's just not practical. And there's a fee that goes along with every purchase. So,
yeah, it makes you wonder if there'll be a minimum set on that card use. a minimum amount? Like you say, to eliminate the change by?
Oh, I don't
maybe
know.
$1, $5 or whatever.
I don't know. I mean, that's probably something we can do. The software itself will be able to handle any amount, I'm sure, but I think we could set that limit maybe. Depending on what the law says. If the law says you have to offer it for a nickel, then we'll have to offer it for a nickel.
So this would have to tie in, if they're using a card, would be a direct deposit into the school's checking account. So then there has to be some way, I'm sure that there's a daily report to the secretary to reconcile that. But it does tie in, we have to tie into their banking account.
It ties in directly to our system. So instead of having a third system out here where you're having all these transactions and then these totals of maybe 100 different types of sales, this system's going to take that 100 different types of sales and it's going to dump it right into the correct account, and it's going to deposit the money directly into the account. There's not any, it eliminates a bunch of work as far as the principals and secretaries go. And so I've talked to a variety of, our school software is very popular across the state. Probably the majority of the counties use it, and of those counties I've talked to a lot of them, and many of them are going to use this system. The system, it's required by the state in March of 2023, but we want to go ahead and get started with it because our accounting records are going to be for the entire year. And so we want to start getting the school year using this, and so we'll be ready by the required date.
The state's requiring by the 2023 March, but you're saying it's voluntary on the school's part?
It's no. It's mandatory that we offer that, we provide that.
Yeah.
It's voluntary on how much or the school participates. And I think there'll be some more guidelines that come down. This is what you have to offer for this, this, and this. These are the exceptions to that rule. And then, so there may not be anything in there about if you want to sell school t-shirts or something like that, but the school could certainly add that. This software will handle anything the school would want to sell.
The training for this is rather extensive for I would assume, the school secretary and the principal.
Yes.
There's a $2,500 training fee, and then every year you have to pay $1,834 for the software.
Our accounting software is it's around $6,000 a year. So
This is just a small portion of that.
I know. Everything comes with a price. Everybody's out for their nickel. But Chris and I have discussed different options, and I think we agree that this is just a seamless product for what we already have in place, and it creates less work, hopefully less work for our staff, and takes the cash out of the school, which is always, if there's an area that is subject to have fraud or embezzlement, it's cash. And so once we feel pretty good about it, once we get a hold of it, it's in our account, but getting it from the student to our account sometimes where something could happen.
We're going to save more than $1,834 then.
I hope so.
We're not tax-free anymore, are we?
No.
Will this be utilized with the food services?
We don't pay, the only body that pays for food service are catered meals, so yes, it could handle that. We could handle that. If adult wanted to come in and pay with a card, we could handle that.
That's at the vocational school. They use that in their business already.
They use a different method, and so I'm going to try to convince them to switch to this, and if it will meet their needs, then they may be able to eliminate the system they have in place.
Plus, in addition to that $1,834, they're going to have to pay the fee for using it, correct?
There's a user fee.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's nothing that the county, if we charge $15 for a t-shirt, then it's going to add 4% or 3% to that $15 that the buyer is going to pay. It's not going to cut into what the school takes.
I think there's also like a 10-cent per item fee on that as well.
Yeah, there was a,
And we looked at 3 or 4 different companies, and every one of them did the exact same thing. They charged you 3% and like a 10-cent per item fee.
so I personally feel like it's the best option.
If we chose another product, then all the secretaries is gonna have to go and reconcile and then draw all those balances in to Revis, and it would be double him doing all that work.
So it takes all the major card companies, it would,
Yes.
just like anywhere.
And that's something that we should have probably already have done. You know,
This says a 30-cent per transaction fee.
30 cents?
It says right here. It's at a .30.
It's 30 cents, yeah, 30 cents.
To each transaction.
So the KEV system integrates well, it integrates well with what we already have.
Yes.
So that makes it a little bit more simplified.
So I'd like to ask the board to approve that. Again, that price is, it's $1,800 for the software, and then it's $2,500 for one-time training. So we'll be looking at $4,334 for this upcoming school year. Good job.
We can drop it after a year. It's a one-year contract.
It is. It is. Sure can. The next item is a Friends or Fun contract, and it's a meal agreement. They provide meals for our students that are there at the pre-K, and they charge the same as we would charge for those meals, $3.25 for breakfast and $4.25 for lunch. And we reimburse them for the students that participate there. So I'd like to ask the board to approve that contract. At the same.
Canal levy. Free lunch canal levy.
Yeah, it does. It does. Then the next contract is with Friends of Fun as well, and it's our collaborative partnership with them. And again, we've had this in place for many, many years. But along with the list of services that they provide and the things that we will do, the value is $85,875.83 is what we will pay them to provide that service for our students. And there's a copy of their budget in behind that as well.
How many students that serve, Kim? Do we know?
We serve 18 students currently at Friends or Fun.
What's your son?
Is that 18?
How many students?
What's your son?
18.
18.
Is that the limit?
That is the limit there, yes, based on their square footage.
It says projected enrollment 17, and they're gonna lose one.
I think up to 18, right?
Up to.
Maximum.
Yeah, they had one spot this year that they weren't able to fill all year.
Our other pre-K partner is the Nicholas County Community Action, and again, we've had this partnership in place for many years. And they work in our schools, and then some of them have their own buildings adjacent to our schools, and it works pretty well. Now, for some reason, the scanner got 3 pages of that out of order, so it's right in behind the next contract that you're going to see, the last 3 pages. But the total price on that is $175,000 that we will pay them over 10 months. And they provide teachers, they provide transportation, they provide aides, they provide space, they provide playgrounds, supplies. So they use that in conjunction with their monies, their federal Head Start monies, to add to the collaborative.
That, go back to that, the pre-K there at Friendship Fund, the 85,000, that covers teachers
And the assistant,
and aides
yes,
and space, I guess.
right, that's right.
You
The
tell what
teacher
they-
and the assistant and the space. They buy their own supplies and whatnot as well.
Well, they have probably 2 teachers, 2 aides.
There's one teacher and one assistant. And their assistant has finished their early childhood education this past school year. So she has, her credential is up in that area as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, but did that collaborative came around because we didn't have space in Glade Creek School?
That's correct, yes.
And so they had the space, and we needed the space to serve the children. And so basically, we reimbursed them for the cost of what it would have cost us to have that at Glade Creek, essentially.
That's right. And like the next closest school there would be to try to house them for us at Summersville, but we already have 4 large classrooms at Summersville. We don't have room for an additional 5th. So they house our additional children, and they also have children there that need before care, they need after care.
And the thing I think people don't realize is when you hire somebody, it costs a lot more than what that teacher might receive in pay, because you have to pay all the overhead.
That's right.
Yeah, every employee costs about 17% more just for their fixed charges, and then health insurance runs about $12,000 for every employee with family coverage, and then we generally have $1,000 to $2,000 in dental optical expenses on top of that. So it adds up very quickly, and we have nearly 500 employees. So that's why about 86% of our budget is just salaries.
Yeah.
When the elementary school moves to the high school, then we would be able to offer that, because we have more space, we could bring those.
Yeah, I definitely think we did have that discussion, yes.
The 4th contract with our preschool program is a meal agreement with Nicholas County Community Action. And so they pay us to provide food for their students that eat in our cafeteria. And it's at the same rates that we would charge if we were charging theirs. And a copy of their budget is attached as well. Any questions on the contracts? So we have a few bids. The first one is with Glade Creek Elementary for their photography services next year. It's $800 is what they'll receive as commission, and that's with TSS Photography. The next one is with Panther Creek, and it's also with TSS, and that commission is $1,500. And then our food service bids, there's not really a price. We put those out for bid, and we put them out into 3 different areas: the produce, the bakery, and the dairy. Unfortunately, we just get one bid from each one of those, and they provide a cost per item. And we reviewed those, and they seem to be acceptable. And so we'd like to ask the board to approve Crook Brothers for produce, Flowers for bakery, United Dairy for dairy, and then
The Brockens or United?
it's United Dairy. I have United Bakery on my spreadsheet, but it's United Dairy. And then the 4th item, we put out for bid a combi oven, combination of, and it came in low bid at $26,501.02. And it's for Nicholas County High School. We received a $20,000 grant for that. And so it's going to cost the county about $6,500 to replace one of their ovens that needs replaced. So we'd like to ask the board to award that bid to Douglas Equipment, $26,501.62.
It says on the second page there, the Combi Oven to C&T Design based on installation and delivery date.
Well, right, it does. We'll grab my folder real quick.
It might be that the other company could not install it in the time that it's needed or something.
Yeah, it was a factor. We think.
Maybe that's why it was awarded to C&T, because they could get it in there for the plan, but.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I remember having a conversation with her now. Low bid on my spreadsheet was Douglas Equipment. However, they could not install that until next January or February. And so C&T Equipment is $300, $317 more. However, they can install it before school starts. And so Sherry was right. Sherry's email was correct. She recommended C&T Design, and I, for some reason, put, this is just a summary of the bids, and I was going off of that. So let me clarify and say that I'd like to ask the board to approve C&T Design and Equipment for the Combi Oven for Nicholas County High School.
Is it United Dairy or United Bakery? They're both on there. United.
It's United Dairy.
Dairy, okay.
United Dairy.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, is that clear? Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. All right, sorry, thank you, Beth. Thank you for catching that.
Didn't hear me, did
Hmm?
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud. Yeah, I'm usually looking for low bid, and I'd forgotten about that installation time. Sherry would have had my butt. Okay, so that is all, let's see here. Combi Oven. Then the very last item is surplus property. At the end of the year, as we always request, if there's any property out there that the schools no longer need, this still has a value, that we will, of course, offer that to any schools that would like it, or it will go in our surplus auction, which is the first Wednesday in August.
Any further questions for Mr. Hess in regard to finance items? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve consent item A, which is finances, as presented? Mrs. Kaufman moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Berry seconds. Any further discussion in regard to consent items? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hess. Mrs. Atkins, Madam Superintendent, board members, is there a need for an executive session?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, I passed out the updated personnel agenda. The changes are highlighted in yellow. A copy has been made available to the public and members of the press, but I will read the changes out loud. Under professional, Amber Lemon, employed in the position of elementary school counselor for Nicholas County Schools, effective upon WVD approval. And then Alan Stump, employee in the position of transportation maintenance director for Nicholas County Schools, effective upon release from his current employer. And then on page 2, under consent, I removed the reclassification. I still have some of those that I'm sorting through, so I will have some of those on July 5th, I'm sure. Please pay Connie Roberts for any remaining vacation days up to 18 days upon the effective date of her resignation. Our policy allows for employees to receive up to 18 days of vacation days. Derek Tillman resigns his position as assistant boys basketball coach at Richwood Middle School and assistant baseball coach at Richwood High School, effective June 17, 2022. And Taylor Huffman resigns her position as assistant volleyball coach at Summersville Middle School, effective June 21st, 22. And also that permission to post and hire, that should be highlighted yellow. But it's permission to post and hire the following extracurricular positions to be paid for with county funds. 200-day, midday general maintenance truck driver, electrician, 200-day, midday general maintenance truck drivers, midday learning center, Old Main custodian, and 5 Nicholas County Career Center, Nicholas County Learning Center bus operators. And these are positions that we fill every year during the school year. And there were no leave requests.
Any questions for Mrs. Atkins in regard to personnel?
What's the current employer of Alan Stump?
I believe it's the WVEA.
Okay, any further questions for Mrs. Atkins in regard to personnel?
He taught at the high school at 40. What did he teach?
English.
Is there a motion to approve the personnel agenda as presented this evening?
Something.
Mr. Amick moves. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mrs. Kaufman seconds. Any further discussion in regard to personnel, the personnel agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, the motion passes unanimously. Madam Superintendent.
I just want to give a little update.
Construction planning, architectural update.
Well, so I spoke earlier about the updates, but one of the things I wanted to bring to everyone's attention and do a big shout out to the Career Center, Mark Odell's students in the carpentry class. They, the Department of Tourism teamed up with them and asked the center, asked these students to build 9 wooden signs, and they state almost heaven. They're more than just signs, but they actually have swings on them, and they're getting a lot of publicity. It's been all over the media, and they've had big baby dogs swinging on them, but they're actually recognizing our Nicholas County Career Center students as actually building those swings. So anyway, that's pretty neat. They take on a lot of projects. They get recognition, but this one they seem to be getting a lot of recognition. They have very little to go on, just said, oh, I like this picture, you think you can do that? So they had to determine what type of wood to use and sizes, and anyway, they did a phenomenal job with those. And so they were placed in 9 strategic places around the state. So pretty big deal for our kids. So just wanted to make sure I brought that to everyone's attention.
Okay. Reports, item 9. Like SESC, we just had a regular business meeting this past week. basically closing out the year on financial matters, much like we did here tonight. And no new action from the SESC at this time. Bright Horizons, Mrs. Kaufman.
Yeah, actually, I attended my last meeting up there, so it was just a pretty standard meeting, and they're really doing well up there. Learned a lot up there. I'm impressed with how they handle everything. It's a good organization.
Item 10, delegations. Madam Secretary, any delegations?
No, sir.
Item 11, items for future agendas. Future meeting dates, we have our regularly scheduled meeting, which will be on Tuesday, July the 5th, 2022, at Nicholas County Board of Education office. Start time is 5 p.m. That is the biannual reorganization of the board, and is required by law that we meet at that particular time. Regular meeting for July the 18th here at the board office. Regular meeting for Monday, August the 1st, 2022 at the Nicholas County Board of Education, and a regular meeting Monday, August the 15th, 2022. Any other, we have a meeting this Thursday. This Thursday at 10 o'clock, is that correct?
Yes,
And so that's, as it's been
with
noticed.
the SBA and the SBA director and the state superintendent of schools to discuss the building of our facilities and lay out some of the groundwork.
So that's at 10 o'clock this Thursday, the 23rd. Here we have a meeting, a special meeting scheduled for that time. And
Mr. Penix, I would like to congratulate the two new board members that are coming on. And I truly thank all of those that have supported me.
I'll second that.
we will miss you guys, I can tell you that. So, this is your last regularly scheduled meeting, and then we have the one on Thursday, 10 o'clock.
Well, I want to mention, I failed to mention earlier that the recognition of our retirees, Mr. Amick is the one that asked us to start doing that, so we've honored that, and I plan to continue doing that. So, Mr. Amick, I think that was a very nice gesture. And I failed to mention that when they were here, but he is the one that requested that.
Well, they didn't do that when I retired.
Well, there's always a story, isn't there?
I gave them 40 and that wasn't enough or something.
They didn't even say goodbye, did they? Yeah.
Okay, having no other business to come before the board this evening, is there a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting? Mr. Amick gets that one, and I'm going to give the second to Mrs. Kaufman. And all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. Madam Secretary, we are adjourned at 7:10 p.m.